So to answer some of the feedbacks we get from audience, what's the difference between Beckham, the couple, getting knighthood versus the aristocrats or royalties in...
Beckham's just a football player, right? I mean, he was an exceptional football player. I mean, I saw him play myself a couple of times. Actually, he went up to, I'm a Liverpool supporter technically, so we've done quite well this season. If you follow football, which I don't think you do.
I follow American football.
That's not football. That's just some nonsense. But
that's soccer.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Well, soccer. It's the biggest game in the world.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
I mean, it's a bit like it's ridiculous when the Americans, talk about the World Series. When there's maybe it's Mexico plays it. It's just nonsense. So Beckham, look, all these people that got knighthoods or get knighthoods or get CBEs or KBEs or KCBGs or KMCGs, right? I mean, there's a whole list of things that you can get depending upon who you are and how you come by those honours. But particularly, I don't know if the audience has seen much of The Crown on Netflix. Well, there was an episode that talked about how out of touch the monarchy was, and that they had these. I think it was Lord Altrincham who sort of proposed all these different things to try and modernise the monarchy, and part of it was, you've got to give honours out to ordinary people. Well, that's a bit cynical, in my view. I mean, there's lots of people that deserve honours and they go unnoticed in society because they're just kind of doing their jobs, ambulance drivers and all those type of people. I mean, the list is endless in all societies. People are just doing, good things. So it was really just a kind of public relations act on behalf of the monarchy, in order to be there handing prizes out, on prize day. I think lots of people have maybe different views on that,
right? But
to me, it's kind of cynical. They're saying, here's the Beckham industry, right? He's a UK, celebrity, sports personality, and exceptional. And maybe the question's not about him particularly, is it necessary? It's about giving knighthoods to sort of ordinary people. But Beckham himself just was an ordinary working class lad who worked extremely hard and was able to change his life and live, like a king.
I see. So it's more like a recognition.
It's a recognition of extraordinary achievement. Right. Yes. So in that respect,
rather than putting you in a society within a certain class.
No, definitely. It makes no... In the context of British class, which is a difficult and subtle thing to understand, even for the Brits, I think, it doesn't elevate his class. It kind of celebrates his working class, actually.
Okay.
There's a dignity in it, obviously, and I don't mean that in a patronising way. So even though I'm saying it's cynical, I have a cynical view of it because the monarchy wants to be seen to be handing various awards out to ordinary people to make them look as if they're in touch. You still generally have to have accomplished something extraordinary.
I see.
But not in all cases. I mean, if you're in the military, or the civil service, these things are just handed out like cakes. Right. I mean, honestly, they are. Right. I mean, at a certain point, you expect them because it's, it's a way of recognising, your contribution without having to necessarily pay you a commercial wage. Right. Is the other thing. But I mean, there's a guy in my troop that got I think it was a CBE, I think it was, which is a pretty low level award, and to say that he was surprised and everyone around him was surprised is an understatement. but he was doing good things. I mean, he'd adopted, I think, 3 children,
right,
and he brought them up. I mean, that is an extraordinary thing to do. But does it warrant a royal award? But
right.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, that also, there's a follow-up. There's a common saying, money is not important, but class is. This is exactly the mentality that makes UK as poor as it is right now, and getting more so by the day. So what's the contribution of higher class to society today? Does it exist today? Or do you think this class system kind of stifled the growth of UK society?
Well, okay, so let's address the first point. The person is saying that the placing class above money is contributing to the difficulties that the UK has right now. Gosh, that's quite a complex statement. I mean, to a certain extent, you could say that's there might be something in that, but class, in the sort of purest sense, is inherited, really. Whereas money is made. Now, if you've got class and inherited money, then fantastic. You're sort of right in the upper echelons. Does that prevent people in the lower end of society achieving their goals? Possibly. I think historically it has. I mean, I think perhaps today, and I mean, sort of in 2025, the situation is less acute than it was. But actually, I remember watching a video of Michael Caine. Now, Michael Caine, the actor, who played in, famously played in all kinds of dreadful movies, but some really good ones as well. Well, because Michael Caine always said he always wanted to work, right? So if he got offered the script, he'd always do it. So he made terrible movies, but he made The Italian Job. Yeah. And this was just a boy from the East End of London, right? And he came from a poor family, and he was telling a story about his mother, and his mother said she had met this real lady on the bus. I mean, this is going back into the sort of 1960s or 70s, and Michael Caine was like, what do you mean? You're a real lady. I mean, why are you, sort of paying respect to someone who you think is your better? Right. I mean, isn't that, keeping you lower? Isn't that sort of burying you in society? Yeah. And then he went on to say that he was trying to get planning permission to extend his house, and he was denied it, for a long time, because they assumed that because he was now wealthy, having come from a lower class society, that his choices and his tastes would be garish and unbearable and gauche and sort of unpleasant, so on and so forth. I mean, all those dreadful attitudes that did keep people down, do keep people down. I'm totally against it. I mean, I think British society has suffered from its fall of grace, and then winning the war. It was a dreadful error. Well, not an error. Maybe that's the wrong thing. But the cost of winning the war wasn't just the loss of empire. It was the loss of self-identity. Yeah. And we continue to spiral. So I think that winning the war, being on the winning side of the war, I mean, Britain didn't win anything, certainly on its own, but being on the winning side, I think people felt that it was a vindication of the British system. So they sort of fell back on, the king at the time and all the pomp and ceremony that sort of surrounded in British history, which is oh so glorious. That there was no need for change.
I see. Contentment.
Not necessarily contentment, but what we wanted to do was to get back to the status quo. We wanted to get back to where we were in the sort of in the 1920s, when everything was wonderful and Bertie Wooster was flying around the countryside in his MG sports car, and everybody knew their place. And great houses, had 40 or 50 members of staff.
The Titanic era.
The
right?
Titanic era, yeah,
Downton
exactly.
Abbey era.
Absolutely.
But
yes.
it's that era.
Downton Abbey.
Yeah, it's that era where the you start to see the shuffling in society, the rise of the middle class, meritocratic society, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's more of an evolution than...
Which is what Britain's always done. It's not really done revolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's always done evolution.
Evolution.
Yeah, I mean, we've had moments throughout history, but generally, I mean, even going back to the Peasants' Revolt in 1381,
right.
At no point did it look as if, and I'm testing my history here, but I think it was King Richard.
Mm-hmm.
At no point were the rebels looking to storm into the palace and kill
mm-hmm.
Richard. And he came out and negotiated with them, and all they really wanted was access to rights.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to change the system and
overthrow
sort of put everyone to the sword.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted access to mobility.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely evolution rather than revolution, for sure. It's very
mm-hmm.
Maybe the British way.
But do those higher class, right? Do people look up to them as they did before?
No.
So it's just a name, or it's just a title that they carry without ever having to contribute, or...
Well, historically they have. I mean, we covered this a bit last time. I mean,
mm-hmm. Yes.
If you're to the manor born in the traditional sense,
mm-hmm.
then you do feel that you have a responsibility, and those people, by and large, I think, try to discharge their responsibilities to some extent, but they're irrelevant in today's society because their power came from their proximity to the crown and the system.
That's interesting. So how did it come about? How did that class, how is that related to the crown? It's so foreign a concept for Asian to understand. Are you saying on the top it sits a crown,
mm-hmm.
it's a monarch,
yes.
and then it just kind of, okay, so you are the lord of this area, you are the Kent, or you're the, right? You're
yes.
so it's through that feudal system
yes.
where, okay, so...
Absolutely.
Okay.
At the very top, you have
mm-hmm.
the monarch.
Mm-hmm.
The monarch wears the crown.
Mm-hmm.
The crown itself is a thing, obviously,
mm-hmm.
but it's also an institution.
Okay.
Hence the Netflix movie series, The Crown. It's
right.
about the institution. And then you've got this feudal system that descends, below. So the next level down is the dukes.
Okay.
And I think there's probably 2 or 3 remaining.
Right.
Duke of Westminster.
Right.
He's quite well known.
So let's say Duke of Westminster. Nowadays, what do they do?
Nothing. They manage their wealth. Duke of Westminster.
Are they?
Is very wealthy.
They have are they inheriting a lot of land? Where?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. The Duke of Marlborough,
Uh-huh.
who occupies Blenheim Palace,
mm-hmm.
which is where Winston Churchill was born.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an utterly sprawling palace
mm-hmm.
on a scale, unprecedented scale in the UK and I think in Europe is unprecedented, and was awarded to the Duke of Wellington
mm-hmm.
for beating the French in 18 whenever it was, the last major conflict with the French at Waterloo.
So he did contribute something, right?
Yeah,
big time.
He won.
Yeah.
Against the French, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, from the front.
I see. And then, but the society doesn't really hold him accountable to contribute back nowadays.
Well, no, because obviously, I mean, going back into the 19th century,
mm-hmm.
when Waterloo was fought, I mean, yes, that was the leaders of those divisions,
mm-hmm.
I mean, they were officers that were picked from the ruling classes because that's the way it was done. There's no one else where else do you pick them from?
Mm-hmm.
And they fought and they won, or they fought and they lost. I mean, it was
right.
going backwards and forwards over the years.
Right.
The competition between the UK and France did give birth to the modern world,
right?
In many ways. But nowadays, that isn't true. You can't buy a commission in the military. Now, there are certain regiments in the military, like the Life Guards or the Guards regiments, you know, that, you know, I think a lot of the officer class in those, maybe not quite so much these days, but until quite recently, you know, they did enjoy their, you know, their sort of landed gentry positions and, you know, but I mean, but in today's society, those people have absolutely no, they play no role and they have no importance whatsoever, although they do still have enormous amounts of land and power because of the money.
I see.
But the titles mean nothing to anybody these days.